There are moments when the soul trembles under the weight of invisible storms, when silence feels like an echo of distance and the heart forgets the warmth of heaven. Yet, within that silence, a whisper rises, ancient, tender, and commanding. It is the voice that once spoke light into existence, now reaching for you through the veil of despair. It says, "Let my light surround your heart." This is not a request. It is a divine awakening. The light of God does not arrive with thunder or spectacle. It comes like dawn unfolding over ruins, restoring color to what sorrow had faded. It finds you where shadows gathered, in corners you thought were forgotten, and calls you by name. Every heartbeat becomes a sanctuary, every breath a prayer, as divine radiance begins to weave through your being. The walls built by fear start to crumble, not with violence, but with mercy. For no darkness can remain where his light chooses to dwell. The heart, once burdened by the noise of the world, begins to quiet under this holy presence. God's light is not a distant flame. It is the pulse of eternity within you. It carries the memory of creation, that first breath of divine intention that shaped existence itself. When he says, "May my light surround your heart," he is not merely blessing you, he is reclaiming what was always his. The broken fragments of your story are not discarded, but redeemed, illuminated, and made whole again. There is power in surrendering to this light. It does not erase your pain, it transfigures it. It turns wounds into windows through which heaven's brightness enters. Each tear becomes a reflection of divine compassion, each scar a testimony of survival under grace. In that illumination, your heart becomes a vessel, no longer chained by the past, but radiant with divine purpose. God's light does not simply surround, it indwells, transforming your essence into a living psalm of restoration. And now, as this revelation settles deep within your spirit, you understand, this is not a message to hear once and forget. It is a calling to live by. The light is both shield and compass, both comfort and command. Where it shines, confusion dissolves and truth awakens. The voice of God still speaks, not from the heavens above, but from within the sanctuary of your own heart. And once you feel that radiance embrace you, you will never again mistake darkness for power. When the light of God touches the heart, it does not find perfection. It finds fragments. It finds the trembling confessions of a soul that has walked through storms it could not name. In that sacred meeting between divine radiance and human frailty, something ancient awakens, awareness. The human spirit begins to see itself not through the mirror of failure, but through the reflection of grace. Recognition is not the discovery of what is wrong. It is the remembrance of what was once pure, before fear became language and shame became skin. I have wandered through shadows, believing the night would define me. I have chased the sound of love through empty corridors, only to find my own echo calling back. I built walls to feel safe and ended up imprisoned within them. My prayers became whispers, lost in the noise of my own doubt. Yet when his light came, not as judgment but as tenderness, I began to understand. I was never lost, only hidden beneath the dust of my own forgetting. There is a sacred pain in recognizing one's distance from the divine. It is not condemnation, it is awakening. When the light reveals the truth of who we are, it does not humiliate, it heals. It shows the wounds not as evidence of defeat, but as proof of survival. Each scar becomes a map, leading back to the center of the heart, where God's voice still waits. In that moment of recognition, the soul weeps not out of despair, but out of relief, because even in brokenness, it has been seen. I have felt the weight of my own contradictions, loving and doubting, believing and fearing, rising and falling. The human condition is not a flaw. It is the stage upon which grace performs its greatest miracle. To be human is to wrestle with light and shadow, to desire holiness while still bleeding from human wounds, and yet God does not turn away. He kneels beside us in the dirt, places his hand upon our trembling hearts, and whispers, "Even here, my light surrounds you." Recognition is not instant. It unfolds like dawn. The eyes must first adjust to the brightness that truth brings. We see the pieces of our lives scattered like broken glass, and we ache at their sharpness. But slowly, the light turns those shards into reflections of beauty. What once cut us now reveals the brilliance of mercy refracted through our pain. The process is not clean or easy. It is a sacred unraveling, a stripping away of false selves until only authenticity remains, raw, luminous, alive. In that recognition, I began to see how deeply I had misunderstood love. I thought it was earned, fragile, conditional. I believed God's affection depended on my performance, that his light only reached those who were worthy. But when his voice said, "May my light surround your heart," I felt it enter not through perfection, but through surrender. The light does not ask for worthiness, it creates it. It does not measure you, it transforms you. Love, divine and unearned, becomes the mirror in which you finally see yourself as God always has. To recognize oneself in God's light is to stand naked before eternity. No masks, no rehearsed prayers, no illusions of control. It is to let the truth burn gently through the layers of self-deception, revealing the holy image beneath. It is terrifying and liberating all at once. For the first time, I understood that forgiveness is not about forgetting sin, but remembering grace. It is the courage to say, "I have failed, but I am not failure. I am wounded, but I am not forsaken." The light teaches humility. It shows how little we control, how fragile our illusions of strength are. And yet, it does not mock our weakness. It honors it. For every tear shed in honesty becomes a seed of transformation. In the soil of humility, divine growth begins. When the human heart finally bows, not in defeat but in reverence, heaven bends closer. God's presence does not descend upon the proud, but flows gently into the surrendered. There is a moment when the soul stops striving and starts listening. That is where recognition deepens into communion. I began to realize that my prayers did not need to be eloquent, they needed to be honest. The light understands even the words I cannot speak. It reads the tremor in my breath, the longing behind my silence. And in that exchange, something unexplainable happens. The distance between human and divine dissolves. I no longer search for God outside. I discover him within, alive and burning in the quiet center of my being. Recognition also brings responsibility. Once you have seen the light, you cannot unsee it. Once you have felt divine truth, you cannot return to ignorance. The heart, once illuminated, becomes restless in darkness. This is the sacred tension of awakening, the awareness that you are both dust and eternity, weakness and wonder. You belong to heaven, yet walk through the world. And so, the journey continues, to live as one who remembers the light, even in places where it seems absent. Now I know, the recognition of the light is not the end of faith, but its beginning. It is the birth of true sight, the unveiling of divine purpose within human limitation. Every failure becomes an invitation, every fall a lesson in grace. And when I whisper, "God, may your light surround my heart," it is no longer a plea from desperation, but a declaration of identity. I am his, and his light has always been mine. There comes a moment when silence itself begins to tremble with the weight of something holy. It is not that God arrives, for he was never absent, but that the veils within the heart finally lift. The world does not change, yet everything becomes different. Air turns sacred, light feels alive, time slows, as if eternity had opened its eyes within the present moment. The divine presence does not announce itself with thunder. It breathes quietly into awareness, transforming every instant into revelation. When God reveals himself, he does not enter as a stranger. He rises from within the very depths you once feared. The presence has always been intertwined with your breath, hidden in the pauses between thoughts. waiting patiently for your stillness. You begin to feel it, a warmth, subtle yet infinite, like sunlight filtering through water. It does not push, it permeates, it does not demand, it envelops. And in that sacred merging you realize you are not seeking God, you are remembering Him. The presence of God is not a vision the eyes can see, but a knowing that overtakes the soul. It feels like a return to something ancient and familiar, as if the heart were remembering its first language. The light that once surrounded your heart now pulses from within it, radiant and steady. Every cell begins to hum with divine resonance. Fear loosens its grip. Wounds stop defining you. The presence whispers without words, and every whisper carries a truth. You were never alone. In that holy unveiling, time ceases to matter. The past loses its authority, the future its anxiety. You exist entirely in the now, vast, luminous, eternal. The presence fills every space, not as an intruder, but as origin. You feel it behind your eyes, within your heartbeat, between your thoughts. It is not something added to you. It is your truest essence remembered. When God reveals Himself, He reveals you to yourself, not the mask, not the wound, but the eternal spark born of His breath. And yet the human soul trembles before such glory. It is too vast to contain, too intimate to escape. You feel both undone and completed. Tears come without sadness, laughter rises without cause. The presence rearranges the inner architecture of being. What was broken is not merely repaired, it is recreated. The fire of divine love does not consume to destroy, it consumes to purify. In its flame, all falseness burns away, leaving only what belongs to eternity. The divine presence reveals itself as both tenderness and power. It is the voice that calls galaxies by name, yet it bends low enough to touch your tears. You begin to understand that the same force that holds the stars in orbit is the one that holds your soul in grace. You are surrounded and sustained by the same infinite intelligence that designed the cosmos. The realization is almost unbearable in its beauty. The Creator of all things dwells within your very breath. As the presence deepens, boundaries dissolve. You stop perceiving yourself as separate from the world around you. The rustling of leaves becomes prayer. The wind across your face becomes blessing. Every heartbeat, human or otherwise, becomes an echo of the same divine rhythm. You begin to live not in the presence but as the presence, an expression of God's continual unfolding through creation. The sacred is no longer somewhere else. It is everywhere, including you. There are no words strong enough to describe what it feels like when heaven touches earth within you. It is like being emptied and filled at the same time. Every longing, every ache, every unanswered prayer finds its response in this encounter. You do not receive answers, you become one. You realize that the presence was never meant to fix you. It was meant to transform you into the vessel through which divine wholeness flows. You are not healed from your humanity, you are healed through it. In this holy revelation, everything becomes communication. The silence speaks. The ordinary becomes miraculous. Even pain glows with hidden purpose. You start to understand that divine revelation is not an event, but a state of being, a continual unveiling that happens with every breath you take. The more you yield, the more you see. The more you surrender, the more you become aware that there is nothing to lose, because everything you are belongs to Him already. And when the presence fills the room, not metaphorically, but truly, the atmosphere thickens with peace. The air feels electric, heavy with holiness. You sense the nearness of something infinite, something that recognizes you completely and still calls you beloved. The presence is not light alone. It is consciousness, warmth, intelligence, and love intertwined. It knows you better than you ever dared to know yourself. It gazes into every hidden place and calls it home. There is no fear in this encounter, only reverence. The presence does not expose your flaws to condemn them, but to transform them into testimonies of grace. Every memory that once brought pain now glows with redemption. Every regret becomes a doorway through which mercy enters. The presence reveals not just who God is, but who you were always meant to be, whole, luminous, and free. To feel this is to be reborn without dying, to awaken without leaving your body. The revelation of divine presence also reveals the divine order in all things. You start to perceive how perfectly everything fits within the tapestry of creation, even the chaos, even the waiting. You realize that God is not a distant ruler manipulating life from afar. He is the living heartbeat within it. The presence moves through time like music, orchestrating every note toward harmony. What once felt random now feels sacredly intentional. You begin to trust life again because you sense His rhythm in it. As you dwell in this presence, prayer transforms. It ceases to be request and becomes communion. Words are no longer necessary. They dissolve into awareness. The simple act of breathing becomes worship. Gratitude no longer depends on outcomes. It flows naturally from existence itself. You begin to live prayer. Every gesture, every silence, every act becomes a continuation of that holy conversation that began when He said, "May my light surround your heart." In the revelation of His presence, you finally understand that God never hides. He reveals Himself through everything, through love and loss, through joy and pain, through silence and song. His presence is the invisible thread binding all things together, and when your awareness aligns with it, you see divinity not as doctrine, but as experience. You no longer speak about God as an idea. You speak from Him because His life has become yours. And now, as the divine presence continues to unfold within you, you realize that this revelation is eternal. It does not end with one moment of light. It continues through every moment thereafter. You carry His presence into the world, not as a preacher, but as a living witness. Every smile, every act of kindness, every silent prayer becomes a reflection of His light on earth. The revelation is not meant to be admired. It is meant to be embodied. The presence of God is not a visitor. It is your home. To live in awareness of it is to live in freedom. To recognize it in yourself and others is to walk in love. The light that once surrounded your heart now flows outward, touching lives, healing wounds, awakening others to their own divine inheritance. You become what you once sought, the evidence of His goodness, the vessel of His peace, the expression of His eternal I am. Dai. There is a sacred moment that comes after revelation, a stillness where the divine does not speak to impress, but to invite. The light no longer dazzles the eyes. It begins to call the heart. In that quiet, unmistakable voice, God whispers, "Now that you have seen me, will you trust me?" It is the most tender question ever asked. Not a command, not an obligation, but an invitation. To surrender is to answer that question with your life. Surrender is not defeat. It is the highest form of victory. The soul's return to its natural rhythm with heaven. When God's presence reveals itself, it does not ask for perfection. It asks for permission. Permission to guide, to heal, to transform, to dwell fully within you. But the human heart resists. It has learned to survive by control, to love with caution, to believe through logic. And yet, when faced with divine truth, the heart begins to understand that control was never safety. It was separation. The invitation to surrender begins as a trembling. You feel the edges of your will softening, your fears loosening their grip. The mind protests, demanding reasons, while the spirit simply whispers, "Let go." Surrender does not come by understanding. It comes by trust. It is the willingness to step into mystery without demanding proof. The moment you stop trying to hold everything together is the same moment God begins to hold you completely. In surrender, the soul lays down its weapons, pride, defense, expectation, and opens its hands. It is an act both terrifying and liberating. You stand before God with nothing to offer but your truth, and somehow that is enough. You realize that the divine does not need your strength. He asks for your honesty. Every burden you place before him is transformed into lightness. Every fear you release becomes a doorway for grace to enter. Surrender is not the absence of struggle, it is the redirection of it. Instead of fighting against life, you begin to move with it. Instead of demanding that the river obey your will, you allow yourself to be carried by its current. The more you resist, the more exhausted you become. But when you yield, peace rises like a tide. God's invitation is not to drown, but to float, to trust that his current knows the way better than your feet ever could. The invitation grows louder in the quiet hours, when the noise of the world fades and your heart is left naked before truth. It is in those moments that the light returns, not as spectacle, but as breath. You feel it circling your chest, whispering through your ribs, reminding you that even your breath is borrowed grace. To surrender then is to breathe consciously, to inhale trust and exhale control, until both become prayer. Surrender asks for vulnerability, and vulnerability is holiness in motion. It is the art of being unguarded in a guarded world. When you surrender, you admit that you do not have to understand everything to be loved, nor fix everything to be worthy. You let God love you where you are, not where you think you should be. In that acceptance, the light deepens. It does not judge the cracks, it fills them. You begin to see your brokenness as the opening through which the divine enters. The more you surrender, the more you realize that love has been chasing you all along. You were never meant to carry the weight of your own healing. You were meant to yield to the healer. When God says, "May my light surround your heart," he is not promising to make your path easy, but to make your soul free. Freedom does not come by control. It comes by consent, by saying yes to the unknown because you trust the one who calls you into it. Surrender is the sacred unlearning of self-reliance. It dismantles the illusion that your worth depends on performance, that peace depends on answers, that love depends on deserving. You begin to see that grace is not a transaction, but a flow. The more you yield, the more you receive, not things, but clarity, not outcomes, but presence. What you once tried to achieve through striving now arrives through stillness. This invitation is not offered once, it is offered daily. Every sunrise asks, "Will you trust me again today?" Every challenge becomes a classroom for surrender. You begin to understand that faith is not a feeling, but a posture, the posture of open hands and unguarded hearts. It is not a single leap, but a rhythm, a continual falling into the arms of the eternal. And in that rhythm, the dance between human and divine becomes seamless. To surrender is to let the light write your story. It is to release the pen you've been gripping so tightly and watch as God turns the scribbles of your fear into poetry of purpose. You stop trying to edit your past and begin to trust his authorship over your future. The more you let him lead, the more you realize. Surrender is not about losing control. It is about aligning with perfect control, his. And yet, surrender is not always peaceful. Sometimes it feels like fire, burning away attachments that cannot come with you. It tears through illusions of certainty and demands that you walk by faith alone. But even in the ache of letting go, there is beauty, because what you release returns as peace. God cannot fill hands that are still clutching fear. To receive his fullness, you must become empty enough to be filled. True surrender births transformation. It is not passive resignation, but active participation in divine will. When you surrender, you do not abandon your life, you entrust it. You become a co-creator, not by force, but by harmony. The light begins to guide your choices, align your desires, and infuse your actions with meaning. You find yourself doing less yet accomplishing more, because every act now flows from alignment rather than effort. In the depths of surrender, the ego dies quietly. It is not destroyed, but dissolved, like ice melting into water. Realizing it was never separate from the ocean, you stop defining yourself by achievements, by opinions, by fears. Instead, you awaken to a deeper identity, child of the light, vessel of the infinite. The presence that once felt external now breathes within you, whispering, "You and I are not two." Surrender also means forgiveness, not just of others, but of yourself. To truly yield, you must let go of the stories that keep you small, the guilt, the shame, the regrets. All must be placed at the altar of grace. God does not need your perfection. He desires your permission to heal you beyond it. Forgiveness is how surrender becomes freedom. It is how you stop reliving what He has already redeemed. When surrender becomes your way of being, life itself changes tone. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start whispering, "Use me." Every circumstance becomes a vessel for divine expression. Every setback becomes an opportunity for trust. You find God not just in miracles, but in the mundane, in dishes, in conversations, in silence. The sacred is no longer something to visit. It becomes something you carry. At last, surrender leads you to peace. Not the peace that comes from absence of storms, but the peace that remains unshaken within them. You become like a still lake, reflecting heaven even when thunder rumbles above. The light has surrounded your heart, not to shield you from life, but to teach you to live it from within His presence. That is the mystery and the promise of surrender. What you give up, you gain 1,000-fold in freedom, purpose, and love. And so, the invitation remains, gentle, patient, eternal. God does not rush your surrender. He waits for it, because love never forces. The light still whispers through every moment, "May my light surround your heart." It is both a promise and a plea, the divine asking permission to love you completely. And when you finally say yes, truly yes, heaven moves within you, and you discover that surrender was never loss. It was the way home. Transformation does not arrive with thunder. It arrives like dawn, subtle, radiant, inevitable. It is the natural consequence of surrender, the moment when grace becomes identity. You do not decide to transform. Transformation happens the moment you stop resisting the light. God does not merely change what you do. He redefines who you are. You begin to see with new eyes, feel with a new heart, and walk with a new rhythm that flows from divine alignment. The light that once surrounded your heart now pulses from within, not as a visitor, but as a voice. It speaks not in commands, but in currents, guiding your steps without sound. Transformation is not the replacing of the old self, but the unveiling of the true one, the self that was hidden beneath fear, doubt, and striving. The divine presence that once felt external now becomes your nature. You no longer seek God, you express Him. In the depth of this transformation, the heart learns what peace truly is, not a pause from life's storms, but a stillness that endures within them. The light becomes your inner compass, steady even when the path is uncertain. You begin to live from love instead of for it. Your worth is no longer negotiated by circumstance. It is anchored in divine identity. You stop asking, "Am I enough?" because you know now you are His. Transformation reshapes how you see everything. What once felt meaningless now glows with divine intention. Every encounter becomes sacred, every moment an altar. You begin to sense purpose not as a distant calling, but as a daily rhythm. It is not something you chase, it is something that flows through you naturally. When the heart is aligned with heaven, even the smallest act becomes an extension of eternity. The purpose born from transformation is not a task to complete, it is a life to embody. God does not simply give you a mission, He makes you the message. Your existence becomes a living testimony that light can dwell in flesh, that holiness can walk the earth disguised as ordinary kindness. You stop trying to perform miracles and realize that you are one, the miracle of grace made visible. Transformation also redefines strength. You no longer equate power with control or victory with domination. True strength becomes gentleness. True courage becomes compassion. To forgive becomes an act of spiritual authority. To love becomes divine rebellion against the darkness. You are no longer shaped by the world's noise, but by heaven's melody. The same light that once healed your wounds now shines through them, turning your story into someone else's hope. In this new life, obedience no longer feels like duty, but delight. You follow not out of fear, but out of resonance. The heart now moves in harmony with divine rhythm. When God says go, you go. When He says rest, you rest. Purpose becomes less about doing and more about being light in dark places, being peace where there is chaos, being truth where there is confusion. The world changes not because you strive, but because you shine. The transformation of the soul also transforms perception of pain. What once broke you now becomes sacred language between you and God. Suffering loses its sting when seen through the lens of purpose. You realize that pain was never punishment. It was preparation. It hollowed you out so that glory could fill you. The light does not erase the past. It redeems it, weaving every fragment into divine symmetry. Nothing was wasted. Everything was used. As transformation deepens, you begin to walk differently through the world. Lighter, freer, quieter. You speak less but mean more. You listen deeper because you hear beyond words. Compassion becomes instinct, not strategy. You look at others not through judgment, but through recognition. You see God in their eyes, even when they cannot yet see Him in themselves. That is the true mark of transformation, when love replaces perception. Purpose then expands beyond personal destiny. It becomes participation in divine restoration. You understand that your life is not about achievement but alignment, about being part of the continual unfolding of God's intention on earth. You do not need titles or platforms to live purposefully. You need presence. Every act of kindness, every silent prayer, every moment of forgiveness ripples through eternity. Heaven moves through you quietly but powerfully. Transformation also awakens vision. You start to dream with God instead of for Him. Your imagination becomes sanctified, not by ambition, but by compassion. You no longer ask, what can I gain, but what can I give? The light gives you eyes to see possibility where others see ruin, hope where others see despair. You become a builder of what is unseen, an architect of restoration in a world addicted to brokenness. The more you live in divine purpose, the less you crave recognition. You understand now that hiddenness is not obscurity, it is consecration. God often conceals what He treasures most. The tree does not shout its growth, it simply rises. In the same way, you begin to live quietly powerful, moving in peace, creating light through love. Purpose ceases to be performance, it becomes presence. Every breath becomes participation in divine will. And yet transformation is not a destination, it is a rhythm, a continual dying and being reborn in love. There will still be days of doubt, moments of fatigue, seasons of silence. But even in those, purpose whispers steady beneath the noise. Transformation does not promise perfection, it promises progression. You keep unfolding, keep expanding, keep glowing, because the light that began in you is eternal. God does not start what He will not finish. Purpose also redefines relationship. You no longer see people as interruptions or obstacles, but as sacred reflections of the same light. Love becomes ministry, empathy becomes prayer. You stop trying to convince others of God's presence and start demonstrating it through your own. Every interaction becomes an opportunity to extend the same grace that transformed you. You become both student and vessel, always learning, always giving, always shining. And as the years pass under this revelation, your purpose matures. It becomes less about outcomes and more about essence. You begin to understand that the greatest impact is not measured in numbers, but in transformation. One heart at a time, one act of kindness at a time. The world is healed not by grand gestures, but by consistent love. Your purpose, therefore, is to remain a conduit of that love, steady, radiant, unyielding. Finally, transformation gives birth to destiny. It is not a path you walk to God, but with Him. You no longer move out of fear or striving, but out of union. The heart that once begged for light now is light, carrying heaven wherever it goes. And in every step, you hear the same voice that began it all whisper again. God says, "May my light surround your heart," not as a blessing you receive, but as the identity you now live. Every revelation leads to a vow, not from humanity to heaven, but from heaven to humanity. God does not merely reveal Himself to impress the soul. He reveals Himself to assure it. The divine promise is not written in words or carved in stone, but inscribed upon the heart, illuminated by His light. It is the eternal whisper, "I will never leave you, for my light has claimed you." This is not a distant hope. It is a present reality. When God promises, He does not speak into time. He speaks into eternity. His words are not bound by circumstance or season. What He declares becomes truth the moment it is spoken. The same voice that said, "Let there be light," now says, "Let there be peace in you." His promises do not fade with emotion. They stand unshaken through every shadow. The human heart changes, the world trembles, but His word remains, steadfast, unbroken, alive. The divine promise is not about granting every desire. It is about fulfilling every divine need. God does not promise comfort without purpose or blessings without growth. He promises Himself, His presence, His faithfulness, His unchanging love, and that alone is enough. When the light surrounds your heart, it becomes the seal of His covenant, the visible sign of an invisible truth. You are held forever. To live under divine promise is to walk with unexplainable peace. Storms may rise, but they no longer define the horizon. You begin to sense a deeper order beneath apparent chaos, a sacred assurance that even pain has been woven into grace. The promise whispers through every trial, "This too shall serve my purpose." God does not waste suffering. He refines through it. Every tear becomes a seed of resurrection, every waiting a preparation for glory. The promise is not made fragile by time. Human faith may waver, but divine faithfulness never does. There are days when silence feels endless, when prayers seem unanswered, yet even then, the promise holds. God's silence is not absence, it is incubation. His delays are not denials, they are divine alignments. What He has spoken will come to pass in the fullness of His rhythm, for heaven never rushes what it intends to make eternal. The divine promise carries remembrance. It reminds the soul of its origin and its destiny. You came from light, and to light you shall return. This is the sacred circle of existence, the journey from radiance through shadow back into glory. Every life lived in surrender becomes a fulfillment of that promise. For the light that once surrounded your heart will one day engulf your entire being, until only divine brilliance remains. Within this promise lies inheritance, not of material things, but of divine nature. God does not promise to make us wealthy. He promises to make us whole. He does not vow to remove every storm. He promises to anchor us within it. His covenant is not to change the world around us first, but to change the world within us until the two mirror each other. When transformation is complete, heaven and earth are no longer apart. They are reflections of one another. Every heartbeat echoes the divine promise. Life itself becomes testimony that the Eternal has not forgotten His creation. Even when we wander, the promise follows, persistent, patient, pursuing. It does not depend on our perfection, only on His nature, for God cannot contradict Himself, and He is love. That means His promises are not conditional upon our worthiness, but upon His character, which is unchanging and unbreakable. The fulfillment of the divine promise is not always visible to the eyes, but it is undeniable to the spirit. Sometimes it arrives quietly, like a door that opens without sound. Other times it thunders through life, shattering illusions and birthing miracles. But whether gentle or grand, the promise always accomplishes what it was sent to do, to draw you closer to Him, to make you one with His purpose, to turn your life into light. There is a profound tenderness in how God keeps His promises. He does not rush the process. He refines the vessel. He waits until the heart can hold the glory He intends to pour. His timing is mercy, disguised as delay. And when fulfillment finally comes, it feels both sudden and ancient, as if eternity had been waiting for this very moment to bloom. You realize then that God's promises were never about arrival, but about awakening. The divine promise is eternal companionship. I am with you always. Those words are not poetry, they are reality. They follow you through grief and joy, through silence and song. There is no depth too deep, no distance too wide, no night too dark for His light to reach. Even when you fall into grace. Even when you break within His hands. The promise is not that you will never hurt. It is that you will never hurt alone. To live within the divine promise is to walk in assurance, not arrogance. It is not the certainty of outcomes, but the certainty of presence. You stop demanding guarantees because you have found the guarantor. You no longer pray for signs because you are the sign, the living evidence that God fulfills what He begins. When others ask, "Where is your proof?" you simply breathe and say, "Here I am, I'm still standing." The promise also carries purpose forward. It is not an end, but a continuation, a call to embody what you have received. God fulfills promises not to close stories, but to create new ones through you. The light that surrounds your heart is not a trophy of divine favor. It is a torch meant to guide others. The promise you carry is not yours alone. It is a ripple in the eternal sea of grace, expanding endlessly through love. And as time unfolds into eternity, the promise becomes union. No longer a voice from above, but a presence within. No longer a distant hope, but a constant reality. You and the light become indistinguishable. The boundaries between human and divine dissolve, and all that remains is love, perfect, unbroken, everlasting. That is the ultimate fulfillment of the divine promise. You in me and I in you. So when God says, "May my light surround your heart," it is not just a blessing. It is the declaration of His promise. Eternal protection, constant communion, unending love. It is the vow that began before time and will outlast it. No matter the shadow, the silence, the distance, His light remains. And one day, when the journey is complete, you will awaken fully in that light and realize that the promise was never waiting for you to arrive. It was waiting for you to remember. The story does not end here. It only changes form. The light that once appeared as revelation now becomes rhythm, pulsing quietly through the fabric of your days. The voice that once thundered from heaven now speaks through the smallest moments, a sunrise, a breath, a kindness unnoticed by the world. God does not depart when the vision fades. He lingers in every heartbeat, waiting for you to notice that the miracle continues. You have walked through shadow, surrender, and transformation. You have tasted the quiet fire of divine promise. Yet this is not the destination. It is the beginning of awareness. The light surrounding your heart is not a crown to wear, but a seed to nurture. Its purpose is not to end your searching, but to sanctify it. For every revelation is a doorway, and every doorway leads deeper into the mystery of love. So do not rush to close this chapter. Sit with it. Let the words echo through your spirit until they become prayer. The presence that spoke once will speak again, differently, perhaps more softly, but always with the same love. The invitation has not expired. It expands. Every new sunrise whispers the same divine phrase, "May my light surround your heart." Each time you hear it, it means something more. You will return to ordinary days, to routines and responsibilities. But now, nothing is ordinary. Every moment carries the weight of eternity disguised in simplicity. The grocery line, the conversation, the silence before sleep, all of it is holy ground. The light has not left you. It moves through you, shaping the unseen, healing the unnoticed, preparing you for what has yet to be revealed. Because there is always more. More light, more depth, more revelation waiting to unfold. The promise is not a conclusion. It is a living current pulling you onward. The same God who began this whisper in your soul will continue it until it becomes song. And when that song rises, it will not just speak of his light, it will be his light. So, as this moment closes, listen carefully. Heaven is not finished speaking. The next word is already forming, somewhere between your breath and his. Stay open, stay expectant. For the same voice that once said, "Let there be light," still speaks, and it is still saying to you right now, "May my light surround your heart."